I'm Rob Sarney, and you're listening to What the Heck FinTech, where you'll experience and learn that FinTech is Fin Life. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. And you have quite the episode today. Very timely episode that's coming out. We have Ian Cain. Now, if you're a follower of all our episodes, Ian is the first repeat guest I've ever had on this. And the reason why is because Boston Blockchain Week is coming up. Going to be live and in person soon down in Quincy, right? So we're not going to hit all the background of Ian. We got that already. I'm going to put in the description notes. I'm going to put in those links so you can hear all the background, how he grew up in Quincy, everything he does. But we're not going to hit that in this episode. We probably run into a little bit of it, but that's up to Ian with how he tells his story. But we're going to get into, we're going to talk about Boston Blockchain Week. What's coming up for this September 2026, right? Because it's nice and early now. So we're going to get this cranking. And so Ian, whole year, we've talked, but we haven't talked on this podcast. For everyone here, a lot's happened in a year. You've done a lot of unbelievable things. I know with QUBIC Labs, but how about this? Go in and explain a little bit for some of our newcomers that maybe haven't heard your episode before yet or know about QUBIC. How about a little background on QUBIC and what happened over the last year? And I know you've done a little bit of a pivot, a little bit of focus change, not drastic or anything, but I would love to hear that. And then we'll piggyback on that and go forward into Boston Blockchain Week. What do you think?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me again. It's an honor to be your first repeat guest on What the Heck FinTech. We had a good time last time. I think that was almost 2 years ago, by the way, that we...
a year. It was last year.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought it was 2024.
Yeah, well, it's been a tough year. It's been a lot going on this year. It feels like 2 years.
I know. I think we're still in 2020. Anyway, QUBIC Labs, we've been working on this thing for 7 years. And the original sort of intent was to spurn economic growth and development south of Boston, sort of leveraging the innovation and startup ecosystem that really wasn't here. You already talked about I've been a Quincy guy and I was on the city council for a while, and we wanted to complement some of the real estate development with startup activity. And so we built a space to house that and partnering with a local real estate developer. It's been a trip, man. I mean, this is a startup. We're a scrappy startup supporting scrappy startups. And we have the same roller coaster ride that the startups we support go through. And so we get it. We get the founder journey because we too are on it. And, broadly, we started with this focus on financial and government tech broadly before we found, or blockchain and digital assets actually found us. And we started to develop a value proposition around supporting that space. Now, what we come to learn and find out is that, of course, the most prominent use cases within blockchain and digital assets have been in finance, in financial services, and in government. And so we've done a lot of that. We've built 3 pillars to the organization over the last 7 years. We started with a loose incubator program that we evolved into a 12-week accelerator program, which has been successful. We did our first dedicated 12-week cohort in 2024, and then we did our second in 2025. In 22 to 23, we launched an R&D innovation program. So we put together a $5 million public-private partnership with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and other private sector partners, including Fox Rock Properties, our real estate sponsor, Kevin P. Martin, who was originally part of the deal, and then he sold to CohnReznick. So CohnReznick became part of that group and others. And that allowed us to give out non-dilutive grants to founders who were building projects that were, being guided towards, proof of concept or minimum viable product. And that was a very successful project. We have a report on our website. We distributed that after the completion at the end of 2025. And that $625,000 we gave out to 25 founders or teams yielded about $33 million in private capital invested. So the returns on that project were phenomenal. It was a great opportunity. I mean, that's the early stage capital that's often missed, that people aren't deploying into these companies is allowing people to, and it was very specific. It had to be spent on hardware, software towards, development of a sort of asset of some sort. But I mean, that's what helps move the needle for some of these early stage companies that don't have immediate access to larger pools of capital. So that was a good project. And then Boston Blockchain Week is the third pillar of what we do at QUBIC. And, this is our 5th year doing Boston Blockchain Week. We took it over in 2022. It was a dormant event, I guess, and it used to be held by a venture capital fund that's based in the Boston area. And, I think they partially lost interest in it. And then I think COVID sort of sealed that deal. And sort of the thing that was going on at the same time that there was, there was an exodus of people that were leaving the Boston area for Florida and Austin. And so they took a lot of the energy from the crypto space with them. And we wanted to plant that flag and make sure that this area had some energy to play with, because what we've discovered is that, in the startup ecosystem generally, but especially in crypto and blockchain, is that there was a vibe, and we could talk a little bit about that, because I think that vibe has evolved, it's changed, it's not as freewheeling as it once was. But we wanted to maintain some of that energy, because and you work with young people, you work with startups, you work with all these people, if we're going to keep people engaged and enthusiastic about participating in the startup economy, in the innovation economy in Massachusetts generally, there needs to be a vibe. And vibe is something that we're losing out on in Massachusetts. And again, you can put that on the table too. So those are the 3 things that we've done. It's been very rewarding. We have learned a great deal. Boston Blockchain Week, which I think we'll talk about a little more extensively, is coming up. It's just about a month from the release of this. It's September 8, 9, and 10. We have hosted it, for these 4 or 5 years in Quincy, Massachusetts, in Kilroy Square, which is right in Quincy Center, across the street from our offices. And, it was a very simple and strategic decision to support that effort there, because the city of Quincy has been a great partner in QUBIC Labs and in trying to create a new, supportive component for economic development and in the startup innovation scene here. Boston proper was not friendly to the space, or was not welcoming to the space. I sat in rooms with people from the city of Boston who were not receptive to welcoming the space. And the space, meaning the participants, the startups and the capital, they recognized that, because they were going to other places like Miami, where the Mayor Suarez at the time was like, hey, come on in. The water's literally warm. Come on down here and play. So we took it. And having a forward-looking partner in the city of Quincy has been beneficial, because we were able to do some cool projects. Boston Blockchain Week aside, one of our portfolio companies worked with the city of Quincy in advancing the first municipal bond offering on chain in the entire country. And that transaction, that effort, that project, which was an 18-month project, put the city of Quincy on par with Lugano, Switzerland, and Hong Kong. And so, this is a very sophisticated product that was developed in collaboration with JP Morgan on their Onyx, now Connexus platform. And so, that's why we've been hosting in Quincy. It's like, I tell a story all the time that, people, I think, take for granted that the places like Cambridge, exist in the way that it does today. But that is a 70-year project. You know what I mean? And it is a 70-year project that had many different partners and components, and it's a specific recipe that gets it to the place that it is today. And so, what we've been doing here is planting those similar seeds and making those relationships across public, private, us being nonprofit, and trying to be the, coordinator of, capital and relationships in order to stimulate similar ends.
Wow. Yeah. And I think this will be, I'm definitely going to be there. I think it's going to be it's my 4th year at Boston Blockchain Week.
You've been a dedicated supporter.
I love it. And it is, it is a vibe, right? So for anyone listening, it's unique. Now, I don't want to steal any thunder from you. What makes it so unique? You're doing it in Quincy, you're doing it. I know that's what QUBIC Labs is, but my guess is you originally picked that because it was right there where QUBIC Labs is. But now you've consciously kept it the way it is and keep making it gets bigger and more, and the speakers are unbelievable. I was blown away by last year. I can't wait for this year when we talk about it.
Yeah.
Why? What's different for people that like go to conferences and might go to other blockchain or even fintech conferences? Why is this different? Because it is different. It is.
Yeah. Well, we literally construct the thing from the ground up. So, it's a blank canvas in a courtyard, and we construct a tent, and there's 200 seats, and there's AV and lighting and production. There's even haze or, fog, if you might refer to it as that. We set up a lounge tent. We bring in beer, wine trucks. From the get-go, when we decided to take this over, the idea that I had was, I want to create something like a South by Southwest, where you're using a downtown or a city as the venue itself, and you're creating positive sort of economic benefits for the other businesses and restaurants and all this, and using those spaces to create the venue itself. And we had fun ideas from the get-go. We were like, because the thing that we suffer from down here in Quincy is that we don't have there's no hotel down here. So like we lose out on the ability to host morning running events or yoga, you know what I mean? Like that type of engagement that people can just run back to their hotels and get changed. Like that's a shortcoming. But, the thing about the South by Southwest.
Ian, I don't think you want me in yoga pants.
No, you don't need to wear. You can wear whatever you want, Rob. I mean, it's an interesting day, so I don't. People, you can wear whatever you want. It's a free country, I think-ish. But we were like, hey, why don't we? We got a big deep water port in the south side of the city. Why don't we bring in a cruise ship, and that can be the hotel, and we have buses. Oh, we were out there. And then when we started raising money, we were like, oh, that's just not going to happen. But that's okay. For later iterations. And yeah, this thing has grown year over year. The thing that has always been like super has been our speaker caliber. We've always had incredible speakers from across the ecosystem. We, have capital providers, our friends from Castle Island Ventures, who have been with us from the start. At the first one, they have a pretty prominent podcast called On the Brink. And I was like, Matt, can you do a live? Why don't you and Nick do a live recording? They did a live recording. And the first year we did it a little later in September. And it was the first day, it was like cold. The second day, it was just windy, or, the third day, it was like a monsoon. So they're recording this thing in the back, and then they're like, well, if you can't hear, there's a monsoon in the background going on. So, we pushed it up further, but we've always had great people. And, leading up to last year, which was definitely our best, most well attended, we had over about 500 people come through over 3 days. We had 100 speakers from all across the ecosystem. And, we had Abby Johnson from Fidelity, the CEO and chair of Fidelity, come down. And that doesn't happen. We are so grateful to have had her participate in the program. And it sends such a message, you've seen Abby at the likes of Consensus, but for her to support a local effort that we put on down here in Quincy was really phenomenal. And, we've been really trying to carry that energy into this year.
I mean, the thing, I'm going to give you my little personal take. I mean, I love that the access you have to the speakers, the closeness you have it. I'm a networker, right? So that's why I love it. It's the best place. And telling again, my students, you'll get extra credit if they show up, right?
Yeah.
All that goodness, right? But it's a different feel, right? And you run it really well, like you said, with your different tents and the food and the beer trucks and stuff. It's got a cool vibe that you don't get in other conferences. You just don't, right? And the access, that's the part that. It's not like you're in this huge thing where I can barely see the person and I can't talk to the person. I can just go talk to them. I mean, boom.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, you've really done an unbelievable job. You and your team has done an unbelievable job. How you plan this out, and you keep it power packed in those 3 days.
Well, that means a lot, because when you're in you got your head down and you're trying to get this thing rolling, it's like we reinvent the wheel every year. And it's like, is this going to be good? It's like, you're hosting a party or something. You're like, oh my God, is anybody going to come? But the intimacy thing is, I really appreciate you saying that, because I've never been to any of these large I've never been to Consensus. I've never been to DAS. I've never been to Bitcoin. But people come to this like last year, there were a couple people that said things to me like, you really exceeded my expectations. And what you said, the ability to have access to the speakers who, are all pretty high caliber in their field, is really a plus. And, I appreciate that. I think that that's great.
Awesome. So let's talk. Well, the focus. Let's talk about the focus a little bit here, right? Because the big one, and this was, you know the story because you lived it, and I was watching you live it. Is all about infrastructure, right? And that challenge. And I heard that concept not at the last blockchain week, but closely thereafter from you. Right.
Yeah.
And then I said, yeah, that makes sense. Right. Then I kept hearing it more and more. I don't know if it was because of you getting out there or you driving it. But then I go to some events and I hear they're talking about infrastructure. I hear, at a Fidelity event, and they're talking about digital assets. What's the biggest challenge? Infrastructure. I'm like, right. Ian's been talking about this for a while. I'm thinking he's all over this. Right. And you were at that meeting, too. You didn't speak at that, but you were there. Right.
Yeah.
Talk about the infrastructure, because I talk about that with the students all the time, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But why infrastructure? Like, what are you seeing? Why is it so important now of what you're seeing in the world too?
Yeah. So there's a lot in here, and I certainly was not the first person to talk about, infrastructure, but I come at it from a unique perspective of having public sector experience and private sector experience, and then kind of looking at how all of this is interacting, because, how I've looked at this entire world now is that global financial and social systems are being rebuilt, like above us, or below us, however you want to look at it. There's been there was a fundamental philosophy about this space, referring specifically to blockchain and digital assets, that starts with the Bitcoin use case, but has really evolved. And now we're in the institutionalization of what was supposed to be the disintermediation of the financial system. However, the institutions are now taking that concept and making it their own, just in their own way. It's a little, it gets a little murky depending on how you view this space and how you apply it, right? How you're using it. I think that, we now are using the term digital infrastructure because there are layers of this burgeoning digital economy. And so, blockchain being one of them, which will, predominantly be used around financial services. You now have most of the projects and the startups that we've worked with are all integrating AI, right? And so that's another stack. And then all of this emerging technology requires security. And so, security is another layer that is essential. Now, when you think about cities and towns where businesses operate, or where residents or individuals participate and engage with the digital economy, how are municipalities enabling those businesses and individuals to either participate or compete in the digital economy? And so there are things that are needed. So there's now another layer of what is probably more core infrastructure. So broadband, right? Or fiber capacity, access to the internet, which over the past 30 years, like, there's been a lot of fiber built. People are connected to the internet. They're mostly using it for social stuff and email and things like this. But there's something that's being powered. Again, this is the economy. And so if you don't have access to high bandwidth or high quality internet, then you are put at a disadvantage in where this burgeoning digital economy is going, right? And then even more fundamental to that is energy or electricity that powers all of these things. And you hear the narratives, which I think are significantly overblown, about the consumption of particular emerging technology, right? When, in Massachusetts, just generally, we didn't have adequate baseload power generation, meeting the threshold of energy needs to meet the needs of residents and businesses, right? Or to have lower cost energy or electricity for businesses to either want to locate here or want to adequately compete, right? In just any type of commerce, because energy is one of the most significant drivers for business, as you know. So we look at, the theme for Boston Blockchain Week is the digital infrastructure stack. Now, we'll largely be focusing on blockchain, AI, cybersecurity. We'll have conversations about electricity and energy, But all of these things together is how I look at the world and how, either the cities or towns are supporting or where there are commercial opportunities to be supportive to enable all of those things to come together.
I see all those worlds colliding because they have to. That's how it's going to happen. And a lot of this, and I'm going to go back, 4 or 5 years ago. And one thing I used to always say, blockchain is going to get big when we stop saying the word blockchain. It's just how we do things, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I think of me the pivot. Just like you don't care about what wires are in your house anymore. That your house is going to burn down. It's it's been certified, it works, you don't question it anymore. You just do it, right? And then all those other elements, especially with AI, right? Because last year it was all about AI and blockchain, right? Which is like also great to people because people put them in buckets. And it's not like I love the way you're framing it.
It is not like these aren't monoliths. These are all integrated systems. Yes. Yeah. So I'm so glad you just said that because we recently came across a group of people that were looking at these things as individual things, and you're like, no, that's actually not at all how this works. This is all integrated. They're all intertwined. And if you don't look at them as, one entire system and how they relate to each other, then you're missing the thing. And one other important thing about the infrastructure, I think, especially in the context of like a Fidelity or any of these other institutions that are talking about infrastructure, it's that there's a huge gap between traditional finance and digital assets still. Meaning like there's still pipes and networking and all of this that needs to be bridged in order to, make this complete. And it's not there. You got decade plus of work still to do, So while there's, a lot of the early apps and different projects that came out around crypto, some have been successful, some have not. I think, again, we're seeing the most sort of wide and prominent use case of success around stablecoins, but there's still so much plumbing underneath that needs to be built to support this interconnectivity.
Yep. Yeah, and definitely when you bring up stablecoin too, obviously that word's coming out more and more from small banks to big banks, the startups, right? It's the payments, right? It's all about that, right? And that's infrastructure is not all in place. Yeah, we're building the rails like overseas so it can come over here to so everyone's trying to figure this out and the infrastructure, nothing's turnkey right now.
I was going to say just the thing that you said about, not saying blockchain, that's something that we've adhered to since we started this thing and started learning about the space because it's esoteric concepts to people, and there's really been no outside of understanding. Like you can use an exchange and that's sort of easy and people play around and there's different tokens and coins and that's pretty simple onboarding. But once you start getting into the sovereign management of your digital assets is where you lose people, and that was the place, that was the original place where this was supposed to go.
Yeah. And I'll give you a little story too. I get to speak on fintech in a bunch of places. I spoke to a bunch of high school students from all over the world that was at WPI for a summer program. So I came in there and talked about fintech. And I obviously brought up, crypto and blockchain and everything. And the professor asked me, so what's holding back blockchain? I go, two things. I said, one, culture. We got a big ed tech that education process we do from executives to everybody. So they're not so scared of it, right? I go, but then I leverage the learning I got from you. Infrastructure, we're not turnkey. It doesn't flow like water right now. It just doesn't happen like naturally. Like I shouldn't care on my phone if it's blockchain under the covers, right? Do I care? I don't have no. It's working, it's secure, and no one's and everything's working beautifully for me.
Right.
But so, and I even because I get to be a entrepreneur in residence at WPI, I get to coach some startups, right? Some student startups at graduate level and undergrad. And I tell them about the blockchain too, about it's going to get big when we stop doing it. But I also say you got to explain it in common business terms and the value of it, not get away from the word blockchain. Depends on your audience. You might want to add in blockchain. Depends on the audience, right? Because you might want to add in some of those great technical terms and immutability, not technical terms, but immutability and all that, right? Trustless. But what's the business value? And then, boom, we're going to start taking off, right? Which which is interesting. Another little story that connects into you. When I was coaching one of these startups there, first person I thought of, I go, I gotta get into Ian. And I didn't, it was had to do with municipal
Oh,
bonds
this was,
and
yeah.
blockchain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember. I sent that email and you jumped right on it and a bunch so did Aiden and a bunch of folks, right? And I go, they'll know more in the space. I didn't know how much you did know. I found out, via Yi, who's Bandera's founder, how much, like, yeah, you knew a lot about that because of Quincy. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is like full circle. Like, wow. Like, well, yeah, what's going on? Because was QUBIC is QUBIC involved with that municipal bond via blockchain, or is it like I can tell you a little story? I didn't because I heard it secondhand from the person I was
Yeah.
mentoring.
So, and that just shows we didn't do a good job promoting it. So, one of our, and we've tried, so I guess there's more to do there, but it's still early days, right? So, no one else has done this since. But how this goes is, you know, we've been in Quincy and I saw this transaction happen in, I think it was a corporate bond in Germany. And then learned about Lugano, Switzerland, which had done a municipal bond offering on chain. And Lugano, Switzerland is really cool because they've developed a whole economic program. From the municipality itself has developed a whole economic program around digital assets in trying to attract new business. And they host an annual event called Plan B, and the B is the Bitcoin symbol. And they had a partnership with Tether, and have done some really cool things. But I saw that and I approached the CFO of the city of Quincy at the time and I said, can we do this? And he was like, I don't see why not. And so that started, that planted the seed and then it started a research process. The mayor of Quincy was supportive. In fact, for a person that, the mayor's done some really good things down here. He's not a tech guy, right? But he saw the value in advancing a project like this because of the direct connection to residents that you could create through bond offerings. Now, the whole goal, there was a feasibility study done with the city of Quincy that started off the project, and it explored a number of options. Could we build a public-facing platform that enabled individuals to participate in municipal bond offerings at low dollar amounts, thereby aligning civic and financial participation at the city level, right? So think about buying $100 bond at your, local government for roadway work. You're like, I like that project. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. You know what I mean? It's almost like voting, and you being entitled to a coupon payment, but then being able to use that to pay for city fees, water bill, sewer bill, your tax, let it go to taxes and keep that money circulating in the system and creating more value, right? So one option. The other is go with an existing platform, that can help. I mean, because what you come across is that in the municipal bond market, especially, which is a multi-trillion-dollar marketplace, you require significant capital and liquidity needs, right? That just aren't on chain to support projects like, it was a $10 million offering here. So soup to nuts, it was an 18-month project. And one of our member companies called Blockwise Advisors led that project. And so what ended up happening was that JP Morgan got word, that the city of Quincy was interested, and they ended up supporting the project. They actually bought the bond outright to basically proof the concept. And then BlackRock bought 65% of that bond on the secondary market, probably, a couple months later. So it proved two things, which is cool. That one, you could do this, it happened, and then that there was a secondary purchase as well. The city was lined up to do another offering. I don't know where that is right now. But Blockwise has continued to have conversations with issuers across the country on advancing more of these transactions.
Yep. Yeah. And the thing I learned about coaching from this individual, this graduate fintech student at WPI, is that that 50 million size is unique in how, because it's expensive and a lot of costs to make this thing happen. But why are they getting like anything under like your 10 million out of Quincy, right? That'd be under the 50 mil, but you still want to have all that, all those great controls, and will blockchain help make that happen, right? So I thought that
Well,
was like, and I learned from that, and I didn't even know you were already deep into this. That's why it's so.
again, Rob, here's the thing. Here's the interesting thing about blockchain, and we talked about, the original intent, which is disintermediation. Now, here's a perfect example where the reason why bond offerings end up being so expensive is because of the layers of people in the middle. Okay. The counsel for this, the counsel for that, the financial advisor, the blockchain advisor now, you name the parties involved. And that's industry. That's part of industry that does not, seek to displace itself. Okay. So it'll be very interesting to see over time how that plays out. But again, as we were talking about disintermediation, but now we're seeing the institutionalization, nobody wants to get cut out. Everybody wants their share. And that's, how I've watched this space from the time we started in it, is that I viewed it largely as turf warfare, and it was with originally the Bitcoiners, then you got more crypto people, then you got the central banks, you got government, and you got the banks. And that's what you see playing out, is sort of the cartel, if you will, establishing the table with the families and who's carving out which piece.
Yep. And is there anything going on in QUBIC Labs with trying to go after either something similar to this or around it that you have incubating right now?
So
I don't know if you can tell us though, but
no, I could. So one, it was great to meet with Mate Yi with Bandera, and that's someone I keep in my mind because like we had another company called 𝐬𝐧𝐠 Lab who will be doing a startup pitch at Boston Blockchain Week. And they have a platform that is for issuers to, assist with things like municipal bond offerings. And so, I like, to consider building a stable of tech and related support to continue to marshal out, I guess, know-how or whatever to municipalities to kind of give them, here are some options, right? Here's where we could go. Like, do you have the stomach for this? Are you interested in this? Because
we got a big education opportunity to let people even know.
yeah, but that you got to think from the political side though too. Like, yeah, if there's a place to save money, great. But otherwise, like the incentive structure is just very different. And so it's just like a big corporation. It's like, well, do I really need to do this? Like, is anyone going to care if I do this? And in the case of government, it's, do voters really care if I do this? And honestly, I don't think they do. Like, they care about what the noise, you know what I mean? Like, that's what arouses and gives them motivation to participate in government. But we certainly keep our eye on that. Like, that's a huge sector of the economy. And so I like it for long-term play. Personally, I'm not looking at any other like significant sectors. We're looking at institutions, like in the way that we support, like the way that we intend to guide our next accelerator cohorts are much more aligned with institutions, right? We want institutionally ready, sort of like regulatorily compliant software and middleware that can bridge that gap between traditional finance and digital assets, because that's what's happening right now. All of these large institutions are building the plumbing, you know what I mean? Are doing the infrastructure builds. It's the Fidelities, it's the Brown Brothers. It's, we just got involved with the FIX trading community. And do you know about FIX?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know anything about FIX before last October, when a friend of mine from this space, his name's Lee Saba, who works with a broker dealer called Rialto Markets. He's been to our last few Boston Blockchain Weeks, and he's on the steering committee for FIX. And for those in your audience that don't know about FIX, is almost the 30-year-old communication platform protocol that governs trading communications. And it was formed in the 90s by Goldman Sachs and Salomon Brothers and Fidelity, and you name a big institution. And it was because at the time when electronic trading came about, everyone was creating their own language, and they decided to just standardize it so that you could streamline the trading process. And we started getting involved in FIX because it seems that the trading side of all these institutions has been cut off from the new digital asset activity. So you've got a whole segment of financial services here that isn't aware yet. They're not up to snuff on what's going on over here. So I'm lying, I guess, because if I'm looking at Muni over here, but I'm also looking at the trading side, because it's pioneering territory for building. So we've been working with them, but long story longer is that we want to support startups and founders who are building to have that ecosystem be either their end users and or acquisitive opportunities where they can take tech and plug it in.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
3 great days coming up, right?
Yeah.
September 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Yeah.
Can you hit for each day and think of the audience, right? So there'll be professors listening to this, there'll be students, there's industry, right?
Yeah.
At all levels, right? Banking, everything. Walk through the agenda. Why do they need to show up, and what day should they focus on, depending on what do you think? I know that like it's all your children, and they're all.
No, that's okay.
Them
yeah.
all.
So we've outlined it. We've sort of outlined the days thematically. The first day we're calling the stack, which is infrastructure, security, and capital. And I'll just go through those first. The second day is the rules, which is regulation, compliance, and tokenization. And then the third is the real world, which is frontier adoption and culture. Now I've got 4 confirmed keynote speakers. The first day is being led by, her name is Yolanda. She's the chief security architect from Coinbase. And she's going to talk about the transfer that it was a single day on-chain transfer of $70 billion in BTC and ETH from legacy internal wallets to new internal wallets. And so go through that whole process. The second day.
So day 1, that's make sure you're there for that. Okay.
That's the lead. Yeah.
Good.
Be there.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's a huge project. And I'm looking forward to hearing about that.
Me too.
The rules will be led by a fireside chat with Taylor Lindman, who is the chief counsel for the SEC crypto task force. And he'll sit down with Mike Didyuk, he's a partner at Cain, which is a law firm based in New York. And that'll be a good one. I saw this exact conversation in New York in June, and Taylor's a young guy who knows about the space. He, I want to say he was with Chainlink Labs, and very knowledgeable guy. So it'll be an engaging discussion that'll lead off the rules day on day 2. And then day 3, we will have leading off the day, the chief business officer of Circle, Cash Rezaghi, who, if you've seen any of his talks, he's delivered he's a very engaging individual. And I think his title's still coming, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be around the agentic economy, which, Jeremy Allaire and the Circle team have been doing a lot of, promotion's probably not the right word, but, they've been sharing their perspectives and vision for how agentic economy will, I guess, develop and evolve over time. One more, we do have a closing keynote, and that's on day 2, which is a good one too. That's the rules. And that's by a gentleman named AJ Warner, who is the chief strategy officer of Offchain. And he is, that is the parent company of Arbitrum. And Arbitrum, as you may know, was recently integrated into Robinhood crypto. They've been powering Robinhood. So it's going to be an interesting discussion how Arbitrum is powering the enterprise blockchain era.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how about a final comment? Why should a professor go? Why should a student go? Why should industry go? I mean, I think you hit it, but to hit them right between the eyes, why should they show up?
Listen, if you're a professor and you want to remain relevant, this is the forefront of what's going on and the things that you're teaching. Now, in the context of a professor, you're probably teaching a lot of historical context, but the history of finance or whatever, part of the economy you're teaching about, this is where it changes. This is where the rubbers meet in the road. And if you want to have some value to give to your students and guide them into where they need to be, this is the place to be. Students, similarly, wherever you are in education right now, it's already dated. And if you want to have a perspective on the digital economy that you need to be at the forefront learning about and potentially interacting with these high-level executives where you could get an internship or a job at their organizations, you need to be here. And then similarly, for anyone that wants to learn about the space, this is kind of everything. All of this is the biggest conversation taking place outside of the political noise that you see on a regular basis. It's happening in the background. It's happening underneath, every single system and every organization across the country. There's a massive digital transformation taking place. And if you want to understand this component from the digital infrastructure lens, then you got to be here.
Right, I totally agree. And computer science, electrical engineering, all those areas need to, in academia, need to focus on this more because a lot of computer science, they're like, yeah, that, and usually it's a blockchains out of the business school or the finance side. Like no, blockchain, like supply chain and blockchain is I love like looking at that. That is like huge. So huge opportunities all over the place. Well, Ian, I'm absolutely going to be there. I'm going to try and bring as many students I can and professors and all that kind of stuff to get the word out. Hopefully this helps too.
Awesome.
Thank you for what you do, how you do it with your team. I mean, I learned something new every single time I step foot in one of those in
Rod,
the conference.
thank you. No, thank you for what you do. I see, like, I run a good event because I've watched you run a good event. The energy that you put into making sure that students are up to date on what's going on here and that they're at the forefront, the energy that you're putting in, I think is going undersold. And I just want to make sure that people know how much you care about making this the place to be. So thank you for what you do.
I'll give you one tip of my energy. 70s and 80s funk. Get that in.
I'm with you,
Get
man.
that in between.
Oh, I'm with you.
Everyone likes it.
Oh, I'm with you.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
You're singing to me now.
That's my go-to.
That's
okay,
my go-to.
Ian, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'd like to say, hey, bye everybody, and get the Boston Blockchain Week.
Get your tickets.
Thank you for listening to What the Heck FinTech. Make sure you tune into our next episode as we continue to interview FinTech leaders and share real-world stories from across the FinTech ecosystem so you can fully understand that FinTech is Fin Life.